challenge all New Yorkers to be the patriots and rebuke and not excuse our role in benefiting from the institution of slavery.
New York Governor Kathy Hochul signing legislation that will create a commission to study reparations for descendants of slaves. The 9-member commission will study the link between historical racism and current disparities in New York's housing and income. And based on the research, they will make non-binding recommendations on reparation payments. Supporters of this bill say that a racial wealth gap persists today, with the report by the New York Comptroller stating that white families have a median net worth nearly 15 times those of black families. I want to bring back our panel here, Mike, John, Christina, and LZ. And Mike, let's talk a little bit more about this poll here to start us off. It's from the Pew Research Center. And this poll, Mike, states that 77% of black Americans support reparations for descendants of enslaved people, while only 18% of white Americans support that. How does the difference there impact a rollout for these reparations, if any at all?
Yeah, really great question for a really interesting poll. And I think the thing we most focus on is that what they have commissioned is a study. There just hasn't been enough education around the institutional racism that exists that happened due to slavery. Once a study is done in a really broad base, then we can begin to educate the American public on the impact of slavery to this day. And then I think you will start to see the polls begin to decrease in that numbers, the gap that you see there. You see it all the way through Canada, even in the situation of the GI Bill. When soldiers came over from fighting for the war, GI Bill allowed them for mortgages and free college, but because of racism, they couldn't get into schools and they couldn't get the bank loans that are there. Even to present day with congestion pricing in New York City, that's going to have a huge impact on environmental justice as cars get rerouted into the outer boroughs, as well as charging low-income workers. So even to present day, we're still seeing the injustices.
All right, so you think that essentially once this report comes out that poll might look a little bit different?
I'm not saying to make it look different, but the part that's missing is that the American public hasn't been educated holistically enough on the impacts of slavery.
Got it, got it. And John, let's take that to you here. New York is just the latest state, by the way, to introduce reparations legislation, following New Jersey, California. You were a former congressman for the state of New York. What do you make of the step by the governor here?
Well, listen, I have no problem with it. I applaud what she's doing to raise the issue, and those poll results are stunning. And quite frankly, I saw it every day as a federal prosecutor. So there's no question there's a disparity in socioeconomic opportunities. And then I live in a city in Syracuse that has some of the most severe poverty in the United States. And there's no question about that this should be studied. Here's the key. First of all, it's non-binding, so that troubles me a little bit. But I think the most important thing is make the commission balanced, make it for people across the spectrum, come up with good, credible, fact-based recommendations, and then sell it to the public. And I think you'll see those polls change.
And on that non-binding note, Christina, we saw California go through this process. They came to a conclusion, and then there's been no action by the state legislature since that report came out. So what do you think this new commission needs to do if they want their recommendations to be acted on?
Look, you know what Mike talked about in the beginning, that there needs to be education of the American public. We are at the beginning of a movement where our country has to wrestle with the fact that we are still very much having to dismantle this vestiges of slavery and how it impacts Black Americans. It has limited their possibilities, their potential, and that means it's limited the American dreams, possibilities, and potential. Look, enslaved Americans made trillions of dollars in wealth for this nation, never received a dime for the wealth that they produced. They were promised land, access to education and capital, and we know that didn't happen, that for nearly 100 years after slavery ended, we continue to allow for segregation, redlining, and denial of education for Black Americans. So we still have a lot we have to make up for, and yes, it's non-binding now, but people are going to work and organize to make these binding over time.
And LZ, to you, I mean, New York is such a melting pot. There's people moving there from all over the world. If recommendations for reparations were passed, do you think it will run through some obstacles if and when they decide on who might actually benefit?
Obstacles is definitely one way of describing the basic economy of it all. I mean, I get the excitement for wanting to have the commission do a study, and the commission, I believe, is going to be put together in 6 months. So you sign the law today, in 6 months you have a commission, and then they'll do the study to offer these non-binding sort of scenarios. And the reality is, during all that time, no one is talking about how we're going to pay for it. So what I suggest is that instead of using a podium and talking about, we're going to do a study, go down to Wall Street, the infrastructure that benefited from slavery that still is really, really rich today. And oh, by the way, it wasn't a U.S. issue, it was a global issue. And that's where you begin actually talking about reparations in a sensible and smart way with the money. Because we can go back and forth about whether or not it's right or wrong, but if no one has any money to pay for it, we're not getting anywhere anyway. So Wall Street benefited from slavery. Wall Street is very rich. The conversation should start with Wall Street.
All right, LZ taking it to the Wall Street. Folks on Wall Street, I like it. Mike, John, Christina, and LZ, thank you so much.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.